The world of Varela Prime burned under two suns. The once green planet had turned into a field of dust, smoke, and broken cities. Human soldiers fought against the Terrene, a proud alien race known for their crystal-like skin and glowing eyes. For 5 long years, both sides had fought without mercy. Captain Elias Ward stood at the edge of a ruined street, his armor covered in ash. His helmet display showed enemy movements across the map, small red dots flickering like embers in the fog. His squad waited behind him, ready for his command. "Alpha Team," Elias said through the comm, "we move in. The relay tower is just ahead. Stay sharp. The Terrene will defend it with everything they've got." His soldiers nodded and moved forward through the wreckage. The tower loomed in the distance, tall and shining, a column of alien energy reaching for the sky. The Terrene used it to power their weapons and send signals across the stars. Destroying it would weaken their whole network. As they advanced, a sound rose from the mist, a deep, humming vibration. A group of Terrene warriors appeared, their armor glowing faint blue, their crystal blades humming like singing glass. The air filled with plasma fire. Explosions shook the street. Elias took cover behind a fallen wall and returned fire. He was calm, his hands steady, his mind sharp. He had been fighting this war for too long to be afraid now. But deep inside, something about this battle felt wrong. Too quiet between bursts of chaos. Too many empty buildings. Then he heard it, a small, terrified cry. It was faint, almost lost under the sound of battle, but his ears caught it clearly. It wasn't a soldier's voice. It was a child. Elias froze. He looked toward a half-collapsed building nearby. Smoke and dust poured from the roof. Again the sound came, a child crying for help in a strange musical tone. "Captain?" his sergeant called. "We've got hostiles to the north. Orders?" Elias hesitated for only a second. His instincts screamed to move forward, but his heart told him otherwise. "You hold the line," he said. "I'll check the side building." "Sir, that's not part of the mission. That's an order." He ran toward the building, his boots kicking up ash. Inside it was dark and broken. Sparks flew from shattered power lines. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. As he moved deeper, he saw the source of the cry. A Terrene child, no older than 7, trapped under a heavy metal beam. Her skin shimmered like blue crystal, and tears rolled down her cheeks, glowing faintly. Her small hands tried to push the beam away, but it was too heavy. When she saw Elias, a human soldier in dark armor, her eyes widened in terror. She tried to crawl back, but she couldn't move. "Hey," Elias said softly, lowering his weapon and removing his helmet. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The child didn't understand his words, but she saw his calm eyes. His face was rough, tired, but kind. He knelt beside her and tried to lift the metal beam. It didn't budge. "Hang on," he said. He used a small plasma cutter from his belt to cut through the twisted edges. The heat shimmered as sparks flew. Outside, explosions echoed again. The battle was closing in. The building shook. The child whimpered, curling in fear. Elias dropped the cutter, grabbed the beam with both hands, and lifted. Muscles burned. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he didn't stop. With one last effort, he pushed the beam aside. The child gasped as her leg came free. Elias smiled faintly. "You're okay now," he whispered. But before he could carry her out, his helmet's warning light flashed red. Incoming blast detected. The wall behind them cracked. A plasma charge had been fired. The beam of light tore through the air, heading straight for them. Without thinking, Elias turned and threw himself over the child, wrapping his arms around her tiny body. The explosion struck. The shockwave smashed through the room. Shards of crystal and metal flew like knives. Fire roared. The blast threw them both against the ground. Elias felt the heat burn through his armor. His breath stopped. The pain was sharp but distant, like the world had slowed. All he could hear was the faint heartbeat of the child under him. He stayed like that, shielding her completely, until the noise faded and only the sound of crackling fire remained. The child trembled under his arms, her voice soft and shaking. Mup," he smiled weakly. "She'll come for you," he whispered. "You'll be safe." His vision blurred. His armor was cracked, blood seeping through the plates. The air smelled of smoke and iron. He wanted to move, but his body wouldn't listen. Then more footsteps, not human ones. Light, graceful, and echoing with a soft ring, like crystal tapping stone. Through the haze, figures appeared, tall, glowing with soft blue light. Tyrene soldiers. They surrounded the building, their weapons ready. One of them, a woman in silver armor, rushed forward. Her eyes glowed brighter when she saw the child. She dropped to her knees, lifting the girl gently from under Elias's arms. "Sari," she whispered. The child clung to her, crying, "Mother, he saved me." The woman looked down at Elias. Her face was fierce, her expression torn between rage and confusion. This human, the enemy, had thrown himself into the blast to protect her daughter. Her soldiers raised their weapons, but she lifted her hand. "No," she said firmly in her own language. "Do not harm him." They hesitated. One spoke sharply, but she silenced him. "He saved my child. His life is mine to protect." She leaned closer, her voice soft but strong. "Why human?" she asked. "Why save her?" Elias could barely speak. "Because she's just a kid," he whispered. "Doesn't matter. What side?" The woman stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "You are brave, human soldier, foolish, but brave." She placed her glowing hand over his chest and a wave of warmth spread through him. It was strange, like liquid light flowing into his veins. He could feel his pain fading slightly. "Rest," she said. "You are under my protection now." As his vision faded into darkness, he saw the woman carrying her daughter and giving orders to her troops. They lifted him gently onto a floating stretcher, treating him not as a prisoner, but as someone precious. The last thing he heard before blacking out was the child's small voice whispering, "Don't go, human, please," and then silence. A faint hum filled the air, soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Captain Elias Ward opened his eyes slowly. At first, everything was bright and blurred. He tried to move, but pain pulsed through every muscle in his body. When his vision cleared, he realized he was lying in a crystal room, glowing with soft blue light. The walls seemed alive, gently breathing with energy. Strange symbols floated in the air like mist. He wasn't on a human ship. He tried to sit up, but something warm held him down. Thin bands of glowing light across his chest and arms. They weren't chains, more like streams of gentle energy. They didn't hurt, they simply kept him still. "Where am I?" he whispered. A voice answered from nearby, calm, strong, and unfamiliar. "You are safe, human," he turned his head. Standing beside him was the Tyrene woman from the ruins, tall, graceful, with pale silver armor and skin that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes were the color of clear water, sharp yet filled with quiet sorrow. Elias recognized her instantly. She was the one who had carried the child. "You," he said weakly. "The mother." She nodded slowly. "Commander Lyra Voss of the Tyrene Guard." Her tone was formal but not cold. "You are aboard one of our healing vessels within our territory." Elias blinked. "You'd saved me?" She looked away for a moment. "You saved my daughter, Sari. I only repaid a debt." Elias tried to smile. "Seems fair." Lyra studied him carefully. Her soldiers had wanted to leave him behind, but she couldn't. When she saw him risk his life for her child, something inside her broke. The hatred she had held for humans began to tremble. For years, she had called humans destroyers, invaders, bringers of war, but this man had dived into the fire to protect someone not his own. That act couldn't be explained by hate. "You are recovering," she said quietly. "Our healers used our energy fields to repair the worst of your injuries. Your body is strong, for a human." Elias chuckled softly. "That's what the training's for." Her lips almost curved into a faint smile. Almost. She motioned to one of the healers who adjusted the lights around him. The glowing bands faded away. Elias sat up slowly, his breathing rough but steady. His armor was gone, replaced by a light robe of soft fabric that shimmered faintly like glass. He looked around the chamber. Everything glowed softly, even the floor. The air smelled faintly of ozone and flowers. It was peaceful, too peaceful for a war zone. "Your people must be worried," Lyra said suddenly. "They think you died in the blast." "Probably," Elias replied. "They'll mark me as missing in action." "You wish to return to them?" Elias hesitated. "Eventually, but I owe you thanks, and your daughter." At the mention of Sari, Lyra's eyes softened. She gestured, and a small figure entered the room. The same little Tyrene girl he had saved. She wore a silver-white tunic and carried a small glowing crystal in her hands. When she saw Elias awake, she gasped and ran forward. "Human?" she said in her musical tone, smiling wide. Lyra's hand twitched. It wasn't usual for a child to speak so freely to a human, but she didn't stop her. Elias smiled back. Hey, little one. You doing okay? Ciri nodded quickly and held out the crystal. For you, she said. Her voice was broken but clear enough to understand. Elias took it gently. Thank you. Lyra watched silently, unsure what to feel. The child's eyes shone with warmth, her small hands tugging at Elias's sleeve as if he were family. It was strange. No Terrene child had ever looked at a human that way. For a while, the three sat in quiet company. Elias told small stories about blue skies on Earth, the sound of rain, and how children on his homeworld used to fly kites in the wind. Ciri listened, her bright eyes wide with wonder. When Elias mentioned the ocean, Ciri asked softly, Big water? He laughed. Yes, bigger than anything you've ever seen. Lyra turned away, pretending to study the glowing panels on the wall. But her heart felt heavy. For years, the war had stolen stories like that, gentle human things. Finally, she spoke. You should rest, Captain, my people. They will not be pleased that I kept you alive. Elias looked up. You mean they wanted to kill me? Lyra's voice grew quiet. You are our enemy. Keeping you here breaks military law, but I made an oath. Anyone who saves a Terrene child falls under our protection, even if he is human. He studied her face. There was strength there, the kind that came from pain and responsibility. You're risking a lot for me. She didn't deny it. Yes, why? Lyra met his eyes, her voice calm but full of emotion. Because honor demands it. And because you did what even some Terrene would not have done. You saw an innocent, not an enemy. There was silence. The hum of the healing chamber filled the gap between them. Elias looked down at the glowing crystal the child had given him. You know, he said softly, back home we have a saying, even in war, humanity must survive. Humanity? Lyra repeated the word slowly, as if tasting its meaning. Later, when Elias was strong enough to walk, Lyra allowed him to see the outside of the vessel. Through tall, transparent walls, he saw the Terrene city floating among the clouds of Virella's upper atmosphere. Spires of crystal reached up toward the suns, glowing softly with energy. Flying craft moved gracefully between them. It was beautiful, far more advanced and elegant than anything built by humans. You live in light, Elias whispered. Lyra nodded. And we fight to protect it. Just as your kind fights for your worlds, he turned to her. Then maybe we're not so different after all. Her gaze lingered on him, unreadable. Perhaps not. But difference is not the reason for war. Fear is. Suddenly a chime rang through the corridor. 2 Terrene guards approached and bowed slightly. Commander, one said, the High Council requests your presence. They demand to know why the human lives. Lyra's jaw tightened. Tell them I will answer, but not before the healers complete his recovery. The guards hesitated. Commander, they may see this as treason. Her voice grew sharp. Then let them. The guards bowed again and left. Elias watched her in silence. You're standing up for me. I don't understand. Lyra turned toward him. Perhaps I don't either. She paused, her tone softening. But my daughter dreams of the human who saved her. She sleeps without fear now. That means something. Elias looked down. She's a brave kid. Reminds me of someone I once knew. Who? Lyra asked. My sister, he said quietly. She died when I was young. I promised myself I'd never let another child suffer if I could stop it. Lyra's expression softened. Then you kept your promise. That night, as the twin moons rose over the Terrene city, Elias lay awake on his bed, staring at the soft glow above him. He could hear the faint hum of alien engines, the distant song of the Terrene's energy fields. It was peaceful, yet he knew the peace wouldn't last. Somewhere beyond the stars, both armies still prepared for the next strike. And when the humans learned that one of their officers was being kept alive by the enemy, there would be consequences. But for now, in this quiet place, 2 worlds had found a small moment of understanding, because one man had chosen compassion over orders. As Elias closed his eyes, he heard a soft voice at the doorway. Human, said Ciri, peeking in shyly. Good sleep, Elias smiled. Good sleep, little one. And for the first time since the war began, he truly meant it. Days turned into weeks aboard the Terrene healing vessel, and Captain Elias Ward grew stronger each day. The alien energy that healed him left faint blue marks on his skin, not scars, but thin lines of light that faded with time. The Terrene called them marks of grace, a symbol of being touched by their healing arts. Elias had begun to walk around the ship under watch. Though still considered an outsider, most healers no longer looked at him with open hostility. Some avoided his eyes, some stared with curiosity, and a few nodded respectfully when he passed. The reason was simple. Commander Lyra Voss had placed him under her personal protection. Her word by Terrene law carried great weight, yet it also invited great danger. Many in the fleet whispered that she had lost her loyalty, that her heart had been softened by a human. Lyra ignored the whispers. She continued her duties, her armor shining, her face calm, but inside she carried a storm she didn't show. A new routine every morning. Elias would meet Scifi, Lyra's daughter, in the ship's garden hall, a place filled with glowing plants and silver water streams. There, under soft blue light, they would talk. Elias taught her earth words: sky, tree, friend. Scifi repeated them with joy, her laughter echoing like wind chimes. In return, she taught him Terrene words. He learned to say Sohara, meaning peaceful heart. Lyra often watched them from a distance. She pretended she was only guarding him, but in truth she couldn't look away. There was something disarming about the human soldier. He was calm and thoughtful, never arrogant or bitter. When he spoke, there was a quiet kindness in his tone, the same tone he used when talking to her child. Once she asked him, "Do all humans treat enemies' children with such care?" Elias smiled slightly. "I don't know about all humans, but I know what's right. A child shouldn't suffer for what grown-ups do." Lyra nodded, though she said nothing. Those words stayed with her for days. Shadows of the council one evening as the twin suns faded outside the viewports. Lyra was called to a meeting with the Terrene High Council via holographic link. The blue figures of the council elders floated before her in a circle of light. Commander Lyra Voss, the eldest spoke, "You have broken military protocol. You sheltered a human officer, an enemy of our race." Lyra stood tall. "He saved my daughter's life." "That does not change his nature," another said coldly. "He is still human, dangerous, unpredictable." "Then judge him by his actions, not his species," Lyra replied firmly. "He did not fire upon us. He protected one of our own." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. One of them leaned forward. "Are you suggesting that this human is different?" "I am suggesting that we are blind if we cannot see honor where it exists," she said. There was silence. Then the eldest elder said, "You will keep him under watch, but if his presence causes unrest among your soldiers, you will surrender him to the military authority. Do you understand?" Lyra bowed her head slightly. "I understand." The lights dimmed as the holograms faded away. Alone in the room, she exhaled slowly. She had protected the human again, but she knew the warning was clear. One more act of defiance. And even her rank might not save her. Curiosity between enemies. Later that night, Lyra visited the observation deck. To her surprise, Elias was already there, leaning on the railing, staring at the stars. "They're beautiful," he said as she approached. "From Earth, stars look like cold dots. From here, they feel alive." Lyra looked out at the shining clouds around the ship. "To us, the stars are family," she said softly. "Each one holds the memory of a Terrene who has passed into the light." Elias turned to her. "Then your sky must be full of memories," she nodded. "Too many. This war has taken much from both our people." Silence hung between them for a moment. The hum of the ship filled the air like a heartbeat. "Your daughter is healing well," Elias said. "She's strong. You must be proud." Lyra's face softened. "She is the only light left from my family. Her father was lost when this war began." Elias bowed his head. "I'm sorry." "You have lost people too," she said, sensing his pain. He nodded slowly. "Yes, my sister. Long ago." "Then we share that wound," Lyra whispered. They stood in quiet understanding. Two enemies bound by loss looking at the same stars, both wishing the war would end. The unseen threat, but not everyone shared Lyra's compassion. In the lower decks of the ship, 3 Terrene officers met in secret. They were loyal to General Koresh, a fierce warlord who despised humans and saw Lyra's mercy as weakness. "The commander has lost her way," One hissed. She keeps the human alive, lets her child play with it. We should act before her shame infects the rest of us, another said. They made a plan to remove the human quietly and make it look like an accident. The next day, when Elias took his usual walk through the garden hall, they would strike. The attack. The morning began peacefully. Siri ran ahead, her laughter echoing. Lyra followed at a distance while Elias carried a small basket of glowing fruits the child liked. But as they entered the hall, Elias's soldier instincts stirred. Something was wrong. The air felt too still, too quiet. He set the basket down slowly and looked around. Lyra, he said softly. Something's off. Before she could reply, a beam of bright plasma shot from the upper balcony, striking near them. The explosion threw dust and light into the air. Siri screamed and ducked behind a crystal pillar. Down, Elias shouted. He grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her behind a shielded wall as another blast struck. Terrene soldiers appeared from the shadows, 3 of them, wearing the mark of General Koresh. Their weapons glowed, aimed at Elias. Step aside, Commander, one shouted. We will cleanse this shame. Lyra drew her energy blade, the blue edge singing as it came to life. You dare raise your weapons in my command? He is a human, the lead soldier shouted. He should not breathe Terrene air. Elias reached for a fallen guard's weapon, but Lyra stopped him. No, she said quietly. This is my fight, the soldiers attacked. Lyra moved like light itself, her blade cutting through the air with deadly precision. Sparks and flashes filled the garden hall. Elias grabbed Siri, shielding her behind a stone wall. When one of the attackers broke through and aimed at the child, Elias didn't think. He lunged, slamming into the soldier and knocking the weapon away. The alien struck him across the chest, but Elias pushed back, using raw human strength to pin the attacker down. Lyra saw it and moved fast. Her blade flashed once, disarming the last attacker. The hall went silent. Breathing heavily, she turned to Elias, who stood with blood at his lip but a steady gaze. You risked yourself again, she said softly. He smiled faintly. It's kind of a habit. The remaining loyal guards arrived moments later, taking the attackers into custody. Lyra gave sharp orders to keep the matter quiet. The council must not know. A new understanding after the fight. Elias sat in the garden beside the silver stream, holding a small bandage against his shoulder. Siri sat next to him, drawing shapes in the light with her fingers. Lyra stood nearby, watching. The way Elias protected her child again had shaken her heart. Twice now this human had faced death to save someone not his own. Why do you keep risking your life for us? She asked quietly. Elias looked up at her. Because life is precious, Lyra. Doesn't matter what color your skin glows or what world you're from. She said nothing. Instead, she slowly sat beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said softly, If the council learns what happened, they will punish me. But I do not care anymore. Elias met her eyes. Then we're both in trouble. For the first time she laughed, a clear, gentle sound that made Siri giggle too. The tension in the air faded, replaced by quiet warmth. In that moment, Lyra realized something she could no longer deny. This human was not her enemy anymore. He had become part of her world, part of her heart's truth. And somewhere deep in her mind, a dangerous thought began to grow. Maybe peace wasn't a dream. Maybe it began with one man's courage to protect even his enemies. Captain Elias Ward sat on the observation deck, staring at the swirling clouds of Varela Prime. His mind raced. Though he had recovered physically, the war had not stopped. Human intelligence networks had traced his location. He knew it was only a matter of time before they discovered the Terrene vessel sheltering him. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a symbol, a human who had chosen compassion over orders. A choice that could cost him everything. Beside him, Commander Lyra Voss approached silently. Her expression was unreadable, but the tension in her shoulders spoke volumes. They are coming, Elias said quietly. I've seen the messages from my fleet. They don't know we're here yet, but they will. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Your kind is planning a strike. They will not care about civilians or our laws. Their weapons will destroy this city, this vessel, everyone inside. Elias clenched his fists. Then I have to warn you. But if I do, I'll be a traitor to my own people. Lyra's hand rested lightly on his arm. Then you must follow your heart, human. You have done so before. Preparing for the impossible word spread quickly among the Terrene officers. The human who saved a child was now warning them of a potential strike. Some still doubted him. Others whispered their fears. When could he truly be trusted? Elias did not speak much, but every action he took reflected honesty. He reviewed maps with the Terrene engineers, pointing out potential human attack vectors. He shared strategies for evacuation routes and energy shielding. Siri watched him closely, mimicking his gestures with small holographic blocks, building her own defense plan beside him. She had grown bold, confident, and unafraid, a living proof that Elias's courage had ripple effects beyond his imagination. Lyra noticed something she had not expected. The human, so cautious around her people at first, had begun to understand their lives, their fears, and their courage. He was no longer an outsider simply surviving. He had become part of their society, their family in a sense. The human strike. The alarm came at midday. Terrene sensors detected multiple human assault vessels entering Virella's orbit. The energy signatures were massive, plasma cannons and orbital missiles ready to destroy the city if necessary. Elias stood on the deck with Lyra, observing the incoming fleet. The humans would not discriminate. Everyone in the area would be in danger. "They'll fire soon," Elias said, his voice calm but tense. "We need to evacuate civilians now." Lyra nodded. "Agreed, but the Council may resist. They fear showing weakness to the human fleets." Elias looked at her. "I'll speak to them. I'll convince them. You don't need to choose between loyalty and morality. I'll take that risk." She hesitated, her hand brushing Sari's hair. "If you fail, it will be your death. I'm ready," he said simply. "I can't sit by while children die." Breaking the rules, Elias entered the council chamber, flanked by a few trusted Terrene aides. The elders floated before him, their blue light pulsating softly. The head elder's face was stern. "Human," the elder said, "you do not belong here. Why do you speak to the council?" Elias met the elder's gaze. "Because innocent lives are at risk. My fleet will attack this city in a matter of hours. If you do not act, thousands will die, children, elders, civilians. Your people will not survive this strike." The room fell silent. Another elder hissed. "You speak boldly for one of your own kind. Are you certain of your warning?" Elias nodded. "I am. You can check our communication signals. You can verify it with your sensors. I am telling the truth." The elders muttered among themselves, their voices like echoing chimes. Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "He is right," she said firmly. "We cannot wait for the council to debate morality while our people die. We must act now." The elder's light flickered, a sign of agitation. But Elias's words, combined with Lyra's authority, swayed the room. They gave permission for an immediate evacuation under fire. The city buzzed with controlled chaos. Civilians streamed into energy shields and safe zones. Floating transport pods lifted families into the upper clouds. Lyra and her soldiers directed traffic, ensuring every child and elder reached safety. Elias ran alongside them, carrying small children in his arms when necessary. He guided frightened civilians, spoke words of comfort, and directed others to safe routes. His human strength and experience made him a natural leader, and the Terrene began to see him not as an enemy but as a hero. Siri followed closely, holding her mother's hand, watching the human with awe. "He saved me again," she whispered. "Yes," Lyra said quietly. "And now he's saving all of us." The cost of choice, as evacuation continued, Elias received an urgent transmission from his fleet. His commanders were furious. They had tracked him to the Terrene vessel and demanded that he return immediately or face execution for treason. Elias stood in the command room, staring at the glowing stars. He felt a pang of guilt. His life, his honor among his own people, was now in conflict with the lives of innocents. Lyra approached him quietly. "You cannot worry about them now," she said softly. "Focus on those who are here. You are doing the right thing." He nodded, swallowing hard. I never thought it would come to this." Choosing between duty and compassion. "Then you know what kind of man you are," she said. "You are the man who dives into fire to save a child. Do not doubt yourself now." Her words strengthened him. Elias returned to the evacuation with renewed energy, organizing squads, shielding civilians, and even coordinating energy fields to protect the city from incoming missiles. A narrow escape. The human fleet opened fire. Plasma beams streaked across the sky, striking distant buildings. Sparks and small explosions lit the horizon. Yet thanks to the evacuation plans, the Terrene civilians had moved far enough away to avoid major casualties. Elias directed the shields and transport pods, calculating every move. He ran to carry a child caught in the crossfire, barely dodging a falling energy shard. Lyra's soldiers cleared the path, their trust in the human complete. When the final transport pod left for the upper clouds, Elias finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. The city below was scorched, buildings shattered, but thousands of lives had been saved. Siri ran to him, throwing her small arms around his waist. "You saved everyone!" she exclaimed. Elias lifted her gently. "We all helped, little one. You helped too." Lyra approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You risked everything, even your own life," Elias smiled faintly, "because life matters." A lesson in humanity. That night, the Terrene city lay under a quiet sky, the human fleet now retreating. The cost had been high, but Elias's actions had shown something extraordinary. The courage to act with honor and compassion, even in war. Lyra sat beside him on the observation deck, Siri sleeping at her feet. "Your people will call you a traitor," she said quietly. Elias shrugged. "Maybe, but I saved lives. That's worth more than any medal or order." "You've changed things here," Lyra said softly. "Not just with your actions, but with your heart." He looked at her. "I did what anyone should do, even if it's dangerous." For the first time in weeks, Lyra smiled without restraint. She had seen what she once thought impossible, a human who could teach her people compassion without weakness. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the war was not over. Challenges would come again, but the bond between them, forged in fire and courage, was unbreakable. And Elias, the human who had once saved a child from certain death, had now saved an entire city, showing that even in the darkest times humanity could shine. The Terrene city on Varela Prime was quiet now. The smoke of battle had cleared, leaving behind glimmering crystal ruins and battered but standing structures. The twin suns shone warmly, reflecting off the towers and illuminating the scattered gardens that had survived the attacks. Captain Elias Ward stood on the observation deck, staring at the horizon. The city had survived, thanks to careful planning, quick thinking, and the brave hearts of both humans and Terrene. Yet the war had left its mark. The sky was filled with silent, hovering ships, both human and alien, watching and waiting. Beside him stood Commander Lyra Voss, her armor scratched and dented from the fight, but her eyes still strong and clear. At her feet, Sari played with small floating crystals, laughing softly, unaware of the danger they had narrowly escaped. The Council of Peace word of Elias's actions had reached beyond Varela Prime. Leaders from neutral systems, curious about this human who had protected a child of the enemy, requested a meeting to discuss peace. The Terrene High Council, hesitant at first, agreed, but only if Elias and Lyra spoke before the assembly. Elias felt the weight of responsibility. He was a soldier, trained to fight, not to speak in front of leaders from countless worlds. Yet he knew that words paired with actions could sometimes achieve what weapons never could. When the day came, he and Lyra stepped before a circular council chamber, glowing with soft light. Representatives of human and alien systems filled the room. Their faces were stern, skeptical, and even hostile. Elias cleared his throat. "I am a soldier," he began. "I fought for my people, but during that fight I chose to protect a child. Not because she was Terrene, but because she was innocent. No orders, no mission, no strategy demanded it. I acted because it was right." He paused, letting the words settle. "This war has taken too much. Too many lives, too many children. We can continue to fight, or we can choose to see the value in life, and every life. Compassion is not weakness, it is strength, and it can change the future." The chamber was silent. Then Lyra stepped forward. "This human saved my daughter," she said softly but firmly. He showed courage that no soldier, no council, and no law can demand. His actions remind us that even in war, mercy can exist. Even in conflict, we can choose hope. A child's truth from the back of the chamber, Siri walked forward holding a small glowing crystal. The representatives watched curiously as the child approached the human who had saved her. He didn't see an enemy, Sari said, her voice clear. He saw me. And he saved me. He saved my friends. He saved all of us. A murmur went through the council. Here was a child, speaking truth that even seasoned leaders could not ignore. Lyra held Sari's hand gently. If a child can recognize courage and kindness, surely we can too. The turning point. For the first time, a human representative stepped forward. If this is true, he said, then perhaps we have underestimated what one soldier can teach all of us. Perhaps war has blinded us to the power of compassion. One by one, others nodded. The council listened, not just to words, but to the actions behind them. A human had saved an alien child. An alien mother had protected a human soldier. Lives had been preserved against all odds. By the end of the day, the council reached a historic decision. A ceasefire between humans and Terrene in this sector, with negotiations to expand peace across other worlds. It was not a full end to war, but it was hope made real. A new life back in the Terrene city, life slowly returned to normal. Crystals were repaired, gardens replanted, and homes rebuilt. The children laughed again, their voices carrying across the glowing streets. Elias remained with Lyra and Sari. The council had allowed him to stay, recognizing his unique role in bridging two worlds. He trained with both human and Terrene units, teaching cooperation, strategy, and most importantly, respect for life. Lyra watched him quietly, sometimes smiling, sometimes serious. They spoke little of the past conflicts. Words were not necessary. Actions had already shown who he was, a man of courage, honor, and heart. Siri, of course, remained his most devoted companion. She followed him everywhere, insisting he show her human tricks and how to carry people through fire, games that brought laughter to all around. Reflection and gratitude. One evening, Elias and Lyra stood on the observation deck, looking at the twin moons rising above the city. The air smelled faintly of new growth and sparkling water from the repaired streams. "You've changed more than the city," Lyra said softly. "You've changed hearts. Not just mine, but everyone's who has seen what you did." Elias shook his head. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it was right. That's all any of us can do." Lyra's eyes softened. "Yet sometimes doing what is right is more powerful than any law or army." "You reminded us of that," he smiled faintly. "Then maybe hope is stronger than war." She looked at him, her voice quiet but steady. "And you are the proof." The promise of tomorrow. As days passed, Elias helped train Terrene youth in both defense and ethics. He shared stories of Earth, oceans, mountains, forests, and the laughter of children. The Terrene listened eagerly, fascinated by a world so different yet similar in heart. The humans in nearby systems began hearing stories too, of a human soldier who saved an alien child, of an alien commander who protected a human in return. Slowly the legend grew. It was more than heroism. It was a message that even the smallest act of kindness could ripple across galaxies. Siri would often sit beside him, her small hand in his. "Will there be more war?" she asked one evening, gazing at the stars. Elias stroked her hair gently. "Maybe. But the world we build after the war, that's what matters. And we will build it together." Lyra watched silently, knowing that Elias had become more than a soldier. He had become a symbol, not just of bravery, but of the very best of humanity. A lasting bond. Months later, peace talks extended to other regions of the galaxy. Humans and Terrene began working together, exchanging knowledge, sharing resources, and learning to trust. Elias played a key role as ambassador, not just for humans, but for understanding between species. Lyra remained by his side, not as an enemy, but as an ally and friend. And Sari? She continued to remind everyone that hope begins with a child, and that even in war, kindness can triumph over fear. One day, Lyra asked Elias softly, "Will you ever return to your people?" He looked at her, at Siri, at the city they had helped save. "I belong here now," he said, "because this is where I am needed most. And because—" She raised an eyebrow. "Because sometimes home is where you save a life," he finished, smiling gently. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. She said nothing, but she understood completely. And as the twin suns set over Varela Prime, Elias stood with Lyra and Sari by his side, a human soldier who had taken a blow for an enemy's child and in doing so, had reshaped the hearts of many, proving that courage, honor, and compassion could change the stars themselves.